Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Commander's Forge. My name is Andy Bentley, and the Forge is an area for me to talk about Magic, Commander, and anything else while I try and get this whole mental health thing back in order. I don't know how that's going yet. But today we're going to take a quick look at the the Commander decks, Commanders from Modern Horizons 3. And yeah, that's kind of all I have planned for the day. So let's start off with the Jund deck with Disa the Restless. She is 2 and Jund, which is black, red, green, for a 5/6 human scout. And it says whenever a Lurgoyf permanent card is put into your graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, put it onto the battlefield. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a Tarmogoyf token. So, yeah. I'm not going to lie, of the 4 decks, this one looks like the most fun to me. And she makes Tarmogoyfs and gives you actual reasons to use like the original Lurgoyf. It gives new life to a creature type that I didn't think was ever going to get, used again. The other commander in this deck is Corum the Undertaker for 1 and Jund, so again, black, red, green, for a 0/5 human warrior. He gets +X/+0, where X is the greatest power among creature cards in all graveyards, and whenever he attacks, each player mills a card. During each of your turns, you may play a land card and cast a spell from among cards in graveyards that were put there from libraries this turn. So I see where they kind of overlap with the whole graveyard thing. Corum feels more like a generic graveyard deck, where Disa really wants you to go heavy with Lurgoyfs. So you could build a Disa deck purely as Lurgoyf Kindred, whereas Corum just cares about getting stuff in graveyards. That said, we're going to move into the Eldrazi deck next, which the face commander is Ulalek Fused Atrocity. So its mana cost is 5. It's either colorless or each one can be paid with one of the WUBRG colors, so white, blue, black, red, and green. It is a 2/5 Eldrazi with Devoid, which means that it is colorless no matter what you spend to cast it. And whenever you cast an Eldrazi spell, you may pay 2 colorless. If you do, copy all spells you control, then copy all other activated and triggered abilities you control. You may choose new targets for the copies. So this plays well with when you cast this spell, do a thing, because that's how most Eldrazi's work. They don't have ETBs, they have cast triggers. It gives you a place to use all the Devoid Eldrazi from, Battle for Zendikar? So I see this having a place. I don't think it's going to be in my Eldrazi deck. I like my Eldrazi deck being colorless. That said, the backup commander here is Azlask the Swelling Scourge. It is a 3-mana 2/2 Eldrazi. When it or another colorless creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. And then for WUBRG, creatures you control get +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the number of experience counters you have. Scions and spawns you control gain Indestructible and Annihilator 1 until end of turn. So, that's fun. I think that one really wants to lean heavy into making the Eldrazi spawn and Eldrazi Sire tokens, because they can sack for mana. And then doing so gives you experience counters, and then you can just start steamrolling people, I guess. I don't know, it's fun. Interesting idea. Again, it has a WUBRG in its rules text, so it can't go into the colorless one. I don't know. I think once I actually like sit down and get my hands on the decks, or at least, you know, the deck list on like Boxfield or something, and I can see where the level they built it to, and then kind of what I would do with it, would really depend on where I stack these decks. But after that, we're going to move into the Jeskai deck. So the face commander for the Jeskai deck is Satya, Aetherflux Genius. It is 1 and Jeskai, so red, blue, and white. It is a 3/5 human artificer with Menache and haste. Whenever they attack, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of one other target non-token creature you control, and you get 2 energy. At the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice that token unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana cost. So I do like this. It is another way to get energy. Maybe it'll help me finish the energy deck that I was trying to build with Dr. Madison Lee. But that said, I do like the idea of, if you just have incidental energy, you can just keep the tokens of the creatures you make. The backup for this deck is Kaith, Famed Mechanist, for 1 and a Jeskai, so again, blue, red, white, for a 3/3 Dwarf Artificer with Fabricate 1. So that means it either enters with a +1/+1 counter or makes a 1/1 servo. It also says other non-token creatures you control have Fabricate 1. And then for 2 and tap, you can either populate or proliferate. Both very interesting things. I don't necessarily care much about the whole Fabricate 1 thing. That's fine. But the being able to tap to populate or proliferate's pretty good. I don't know. And finally, we have the Simic deck. The leader of the Simic deck is Omo, Queen of Vesuva, for 2 and a hybrid green-blue. We have a 1/5 Shapeshifter Noble. Whenever Omo, Queen of Vesuva, enters the battlefield or attacks, put an everything counter on each of up to 1 target land and up to 1 target creature. Each land with an everything counter on it is every land type in addition to the other types. Each non-land creature with an everything counter on it is every creature type. The only thing I can think of when I see everything counters now is a bagel counter, because I watched the Commander at Home game where they were playing these decks, and they talked about using 3D printed bagels as the everything counter, and I can't get that out of my head now. That said, the backup in this deck is Yoti, Moag Ancient. 2, a green and a blue, for a 2/4 elemental. When Yoti enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 green forest dryad land creature token for each time you've cast your commander this game from the command zone. At the beginning of each combat, land creatures you control get +X/+X till end of turn, where X is Yoti's power. I don't have that lands deck together right now, but this would definitely be going into it if I did. And yeah, that's the 8 commanders that come with the commander decks. I'm going to take a quick little break here, and then when I come back, I'm going to go through some of the cards in the decks that I just want to look at real quick. And I'll see you in a moment. Alright, we're back, and we're going to start with the Eldrazi stuff again. Because I can. First up, I want to talk about Eldrazi Confluence. So it's a take on the Confluence cycle. It's 2 and 2 colorless. For an instant, you can choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once. Target creature gets +3/-3 till end of turn. Exile target non-land permanent, then return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Or create a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion creature token with sacrifice this creature, add colorless. So I really like this in the if you have a big giant Eldrazi Titan and you just need to push some damage through, cool, you can give it +9/-9. But more I like this for the exile mode and the making Eldrazi spawns. Or Scions. Sorry, there's a difference. The next thing I want to talk about is Eldritch Immunity. It is a single colorless for a kindred instant. And target creature you control gains protection from each color till end of turn. Or you can overload it for 4 and a colorless. So, I don't know. I really like that. I don't necessarily like that just for colorless decks. That seems pretty good, like, anywhere that can make colorless mana. Next we have Selective Obliteration, which is 3 and 2 colorless for a sorcery. Each player chooses a color, then exile each permanent unless it's colorless, or it's only the color its controller chose. So I like this in that it hits everything that's not just that color or colorless, you know? Yeah, that's really all I want to talk about in the Eldrazi deck for right now. And we're going to move into the Jeskai deck. Starting with Localized Destruction. 3 white for a sorcery, you get an energy. Then you may pay 1 or more energy. If you do, each creature you control with power equal to the amount of energy paid this way gains indestructible till end of turn. Destroy all creatures. That's interesting ways to use energy is a new thing that we're getting, right? That said, the next one I want to talk about is the Aurora Shifter. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 shapeshifter. Whenever the Aurora Shifter deals combat damage to a player, you get that many energy tokens. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 2 energy. When you do, Aurora Shifter becomes a copy of another target creature you control, except it has this ability, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you get that many energy counters. Yeah. Again, that doesn't do much with energy besides make a copy of things, but it can start stockpiling a lot of energy. And finally from that deck, I want to talk about the Aether Refinery. 4 red for an artifact. If you would get 1 or more energy, you get twice that many energy instead. Tap, you get energy, then you may pay 1 or more energy. If you do, create an XX black Aetherborn creature token where X is the amount of energy paid this way. So, yeah. Just lots of fun stuff, right? Now, looking at the Goyf deck, I have to talk about some of the Goyfs that are in there. So, starting with Barrow-Goyf, which is 2 and a black for a star/1+ star Lurgoyf. It has Death Touch and Lifelink. Its power is equal to the number of creature card types among cards in all graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. Whenever Barrow-Goyf deals combat damage to a player, you may mill that many cards. If you do, you may put a creature card from among them into your hand. Yeah. Next up, we have Pyrogoyf, which is 3 in a red for a star / 1+ star for a Lurgoyf. Power is equal to the number of card types among cards in all graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. Whenever Pyrogoyf or another Lurgoyf creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature deals damage equal to its power to any target. Hold on, it gets better. Polygoyf, 2 and green for a star and 1+ star Lurgoyf. It has Trample and Myriad. Polygoyf's power is equal to the number of card types among card types in all graveyards, and its toughness is equal to that number +1. And I might as well bring up the Tarmogoyf Nest. 2 and a green for a Kindred enchantment. Enchant a land. Enchanted land has 1 green and tap. Create a Tarmogoyf token. Yeah. Good times. Alright, and that just leaves the Simic deck. And one of the things I want to talk about first in this deck is copy land. 2 and a blue for an enchantment. You may have copy land enter the battlefield as a copy of any land on the battlefield, except it's an enchantment in addition to its other types. Especially in the deck that it's in, like, you can make a copy of somebody's, like, Gaia's Cradle, but then you can also make it every land type, which means it would no longer just tap for green, but any color. So just things like that I find fun. Or like March from Velisvel, which is 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Choose a non-basic land type. Each land you control of that type becomes a copy of target creature you control until end of turn, and gains haste until end of turn. And it has flashback for 4 and a blue. So, yeah, that can just end a game out of nowhere. Next up, we have Sage of the Maze for 2 and a green. It is a 1/3 elf wizard. You can tap it to add 2 mana in any combination of colors. And you can tap it till end of turn. Target land you control becomes an X citizen creature token with haste, in addition to its other types, where X is twice the number of gates you control. Activate only as a sorcery. And you can tap an untapped gate you control to untap Sage of the Maze. So, again, when you start put everything counters on all your lands, they are now also gates. So just go ham. And finally, we're going to talk about Aggressive Biomancy. It is XX green blue for a sorcery. Create X tokens that are copies of target creature you control, except they have... When this creature enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So, yes, good times. That is kind of all the time I want to spend looking at these for now. And we're pretty close to what I try and keep my runtime to, so I'm going to end that here. And, thanks for listening. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. All of my links can be found in my link tree in the description below. I would like to thank Ian Foss and Cody Mulphy of the band The Crypt for allowing me to use music for my opening and ending, along with Nate and Erica Jacobs for making my original logo. And I would also like to thank Christina McNichol for creating my new logo. And I'll see you next time.